Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. This is Webster, Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Yeah, the Republicans are parading the Constitution, wrapping themselves in the Constitution. At the same time, one of their leading ideologues, the infamous, notorious Antonin Scalia, the head of the Rats Cabal in the Supreme Court, Roberts, Alito, Thomas, and Scalia, says that discrimination against women is fine with the Constitution. Now, this points us towards that 14th Amendment issue, right? The 14th Amendment, the fruits of the Civil War, among other things, not just the abolition of slavery, but that there are limits on what a state can do to you. That's the 14th Amendment. No state shall deprive any person of life, liberty, property without due process of law. No state shall deprive you of the equal protection of the law. So that seems to be what Scalia can't read. You remember 10 years ago, Scalia stood out by his refusal to admit that there's a right to vote found in the U.S. Constitution. It's there. It's not as lapidary a statement as we would like, but it is there. Scalia says, I don't find it. Well, get a pair of glasses, Scalia. If anybody was ripe for impeachment from the Supreme Court, it is this arch-reactionary Scalia. And the other thing, of course, Roberts shows himself to be essentially the errand boy for the new Republicans. He does a special swearing in of Congressman Boehner and his staff. And Boehner, what is the bane? Is it something about the bane of our existence? Anyway, Boehner and his staff get sworn in privately in a special tailor-made ceremony by Roberts, who shows, therefore, his cringing devotion to these new reactionaries as they come to town. Well, when I think about the 14th Amendment, I think it's something to defend. I can remember my great-grandfather, Joseph Henry Tarpley, 11th United States Infantry of the 5th Corps under Sykes, fighting in the Valley of Death there between the Devil's Den and Little Round Top at the Battle of Gettysburg on the second day, July 2nd, 1863. And one of the reasons he was risking his life was for things like the 14th Amendment. So I would say to these copperheads and doughfaces, to put it mildly, get your hands off the 14th Amendment. We're not going back to those days of Jefferson Davis, Judah Benjamin, Yancey, Toombs, Seddon, Stevens, and the rest of those despicable characters. And indeed, we have a new cast of characters today. We have Christie, Governor Christie. We shouldn't forget, in the States, monstrous things are going on in the States, right? Christie, of course, reminds us of Goering. Scott in Florida, we covered last week his proposal for slave labor for people getting unemployment benefits. Scott, of course, reminds us of Ernst Röhm, the head of the Brown Shirts, the head of the SA. Röhm, if we were going to have a movie about Scott, we would have him played by Erich von Stroheim. Remember him, the famous German actor, appeared in Sunset Boulevard and other shows. And, of course, what can we say about Brewer of Arizona now? People are dying because of her budget cuts. The genocidal overtone is clear. One thinks about various matrons of the camps, let's say, at this point, to compare them to Brewer, to go no further. Now, interestingly enough, a columnist here in the Washington Post points out that the Republicans have this thing called the job-killing machine. The Republican theory is that government itself is the job-killing machine. Government is the job-killing beast, writes Stephen Pearlstein. And he says, I wonder how Republicans and their media posse would like it if Democrats started referring to genocidal deregulation, genocidal in quotes, genocidal deregulation, or the, quote, murderous, unquote, repeal of health care reform, or if Republican economic policies were likened to an infamous neutron bomb that kill the workers but leave the jobs intact. Unfair? No doubt. but no more so than portraying as job killing every regulation, every tax, and every dollar of government spending. Yes, well, Pearlstein, the point is this is exactly what you should be saying. Call things by their names. If you say we're going to starve the beast of health care, when that's how a lot of people are staying alive, that is genocide. It is murderous. It is a form of political neutron bomb. And this is not some supercilious little debater's point or little rhetorical flourish. This is the heart of the matter. This is the bankruptcy of the Democrats. They don't call things by their names. Now, who are the beneficiaries? Well, the beneficiaries, certainly not the American people. The Republicans who are now back say they want to go back to the economic methods of Bush. They put this on the agenda. And of course, what was the outcome of Bush? As we're told this week by Leo Gerard, the head of the United Steelworkers of America, 40,000 U.S. factories were destroyed during the Bush years, 2001 to 2009. 40,000 U.S. factories. Hitler could never do that. Stalin could never do that. Mao could never do that. Tojo could never do that. Their bombers could never destroy 40,000 U.S. factories, but Republican economics did the job, destroying 4.4 million jobs in the process. So the net outcome is we've seen Obama and the Wall Street Democrats and the czars. They are a failure. They are an obscene mockery of their claim to be the new Kennedy, the new Roosevelt. This is ridiculous. They're the anti-Kennedy, the anti-Roosevelt, and the anti-LBJ all rolled up into one. Now we have the reactionary Republicans. What is the alternative? There's got to be a third way. The traditionalism of the American system. That means people like Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, Abraham Lincoln, the populists, the progressives, if you will, Franklin D. Roosevelt, John F. Kennedy. That's the real tradition that means something. That's what we're fighting for here. It's time to gear up and do something in this direction. Now, the beneficiaries, we have an interesting article in the Atlantic Monthly by this Reuters Financial Times correspondent, I guess she is, pro-British, from Canada, I think. Christia Freeland writes about the global elite, the new ruling class, the people who were cavorting in St. Bart's over the Christmas vacation, these cosmopolitans. Now, these are the beneficiaries. One of the interesting facts in this article, which is worth a read, I suppose, superficial though it is, we have the top 25 hedge fund managers. Okay, the top 25 hedge fund managers. I guess we're talking about Greenlight Capital. We're talking about these different people participating in the idea dinner there at Monness, Crespi and Hart last February to attack Greece, to bring the crisis to Europe. The top 25 hedge fund managers each earned more than $1 billion in 2009, more than $1 billion each. And then you wonder, in terms of the tax compromise that just went into law last month in December with Obama and Mitch McConnell joining hands against the American people, who are the beneficiaries of that? Well, it's these people like these 25 top hedge fund managers, although we hasten to point out that a lot of their income is already shielded by this absurd, idiotic, and criminal carried interest provision that allows them to count hedge fund income, speculative income, at a lower tax rate than somebody who's trying to produce something, be it a dry cleaner or an auto mechanic or anybody operating in the real world. We'll be back in just a minute.